You are live.
Hey, I'd like to call the Finance and Budget Committee to order. Welcome everyone here, and the first item is a motion to approve the minutes from the prior committee meeting by Supervisor Mayday, seconded by Supervisor Driscoll. Additions, corrections, comments? Call the question, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Privilege of the floor and public comment. Anyone want to yell at us or? Okay. Action agenda. The first item is a request for transfer of funds as attached for the committee. So looks like $1,000 for the sheriff's department and 30 cents for public defender's office. Okay, right. And then we have DPW. Workforce. Someone care to move those forward? Moved by Supervisor Mayday, seconded by Supervisor Crusito. Any questions or discussion on those transfers? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Number two is items to be discussed by the county administrator. Journal transfers.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Item 2A is the journal report of transfers. There are a few on there. You see in the DPW administration 6339.55. That is for SVCA cylinders that are firefighting equipment. Office of Emergency Services. This is a hazmat grant. The funds are being utilized by them to procure equipment. And Sheriff's Department, 28,600. That was also a grant. That was safety equipment. They bought on-gun lasers, and they think that's better itemized under other equipment, so they're moving the amount to other equipment. And the social services is for $6,000 transferred to contract. That's for court-ordered follicle hair testing. That's fairly expensive. Any other questions on?
Any questions?
Thank you. Item 2B. There's a breakdown in your packet of the amount of money that we're requesting to transfer from the general fund unappropriated surplus. Basically, as we go into the budget process, we budget for upcoming contracts, union contracts that we know we're going to be negotiating in that year. This year, we neglected to include the amount for the Teamsters who represent our corrections officers. And you'll see later on, we did account for the Alliance, but we did not put the amount in. It turns out it's about $298,000 that cost of that union contract. In addition, we are watching the overtime for corrections officers. It's down significantly from last year, but we put $300,000 into the budget, and they've spent $286,000 so far, half of the year. So we're assuming that continues. We're asking to move another $300,000 into corrections overtime to cover through the end of the year, so we don't have to come back to the committee again and ask for the transfer. If we don't use it, it goes back into the fund. at the end of the year when we reconcile all the salaries. Corrections overtime, again, they're full now in corrections. And they can handle most of the shifts. The challenges they have are when a number of people call out sick or a number of people are on light duty. And they also have the obligation to transport prisoners. Sometimes that exceeds what they need, what they anticipate. And so that's why they have the overtime in the corrections office. So we're asking to put $300,000 there as well. So that ends up with the amount of $598,171 from the unappropriated surplus.
Someone like to bring this to the floor? Supervisor Mayday and seconded by Supervisor Geraci. Any questions? Now, is part of this 300,000, is that because of the settlement, of the union, the increase in cost, or?
Well, the settlement was right about 224,000, and then when you add in fringe, it came to about $298,000.
The settlement,
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
the settlement was, having, the spreadsheet. The settlement was 170, there's, on page 2, on item that keeps that down. The settlement itself was 176,000. So if
Okay,
the
great.
fringe added, it was like 220. So the additional is 300,000 and the fringe that would go along with that 300,000.
Thanks. Yes.
But the 300,000 represents, is there because we didn't have the correctional officers to cover the shifts and we had to use overtime to cover those shifts. And going forward, that won't happen.
There are two separate items. The
Yeah.
first is, like, let's just say it's 300 for the approximately $600,000. $300,000 roughly was the amount of money that we should have put in the budget last year, or some amount anticipating what we would agree to when we went into the Teamsters union contract negotiation.
Okay,
As we negotiated the new contract, we got a 4-year contract that you voted on last time with the Teamsters, that gave them, salary increases, and the cost to us this year was roughly $300,000. Since we were moving that money and we were dealing with corrections, we thought this was a good opportunity because we're close to the 300,000 we already budgeted for overtime for the corrections officers. We thought we'd ask to put another 300,000 in there. Hopefully that will get us to the end of the year. Hopefully there'll be some left over because again, they're at 100% now and we
okay,
should see overtime dropping a little bit.
okay.
Any other questions? I guess my way of looking at that is that doesn't give any incentive to the sheriff's department to manage the overtime. It's basically, here you go. Well, anyhow,
Would you like to propose a lesser amount or?
yeah, maybe 100,000. That way, you may have money left in some other codes to cover the
Right.
overtime also.
I think that's acceptable. Do 100,000 instead of the 300,000.
So there will be an adjustment.
The committee.
Overtime always happens there. It
Yeah, I know.
just, I don't think it's abused. It's always what's mandated, so. It's like one of those things, and that's what's unfortunate, what happened with Comstock, but, to our benefit for sure, but. In another year, you're gonna see probably change again, so.
Yeah. Well, that's a, yes.
Yeah, on your point, I mean, whether it's $100,000 or $300,000, when the demand exists, it exists. I find it hard to believe that the sheriff would violate common sense practices about overtime because there's additional funds available there. I mean, as Supervisor Mayday said, these things happen. You simply can't plan for it. We heard the other day at a committee meeting, you take somebody to Buffalo, takes 2 officers on overtime. You gotta go through the judicial proceedings or medical proceedings and drive them all back. That's a 10, 12-hour day. So, you know, I would think, I know that the county treasurer is looking at overtime in general, certainly the sheriff's department overtime. If there's issues that we can deal with them, that would make sense about eliminating some things, I think we would do that, but I don't see the amount right now, 100,000 to 300,000, having an impact on what they have to do on a daily basis. Just opinion.
My only other thought was by cutting it back right now, is that going to open up the door where October, November coming and asking for another 100,000 or whatever it may be, you know, so. I don't know, it just might be,
That was why we set the amount of 300. We were saying we averaged 300 the first half of the year. This is the second half of the year.
Well, go ahead.
To both the supervisor's point, I agree, if the need is there, it's there, but does pulling it back to 100,000 force that department to look at their budget a little closer before they automatically come in and just ask for that amount more. I certainly don't think anything's abused. I certainly think the need is there. But is this an opportunity to look at the budget and maybe move things around a little? If they do need more, maybe they come back and ask for more. It's just,
I would
Man's
add,
opinion.
you know, they're down from last year at about $1 million, and it roughly we had been as high as 1.4 million, I believe.
the budget was over $1 million, I'm sorry.
And the overtime costs last year were about $1 million.
Yeah.
And overtime costs the previous year, I think, were about 1.2 or 1.4. So they have significantly, the impact of having the additional corrections officers now has had an impact on their overtime so far this year. But again, like Supervisor Gerasi said, when you have to send 2 officers
Yeah.
to Buffalo was the only youth facility we can, and you have to bring that person back and forth, that's overtime. You know, you get into overtime for that.
Understood.
One last question. Was the 300,000 a request of the sheriff or is that a recommendation of the county
That
administrator?
was a recommendation from us.
Well, I just know what I've heard over the years is, once we, get to full staff, we won't have as much overtime, and that obviously is not the case.
but that's the 30 years.
Somebody was telling me stories all that time. All right, we'll leave it at 300, you know. Any other discussion? Call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Item 2C. This is, as I mentioned before, this is $90,000 from Budget Code A 1990, 469.01 contingent account, other payments, salaries. This is money that we did put in the budget, anticipating that we would have to pay an increase in the Alliance settlement that we just reached as well, and we just voted on last month. So we're just asking to move the money to cover the costs associated with the sheriff's budget and the alliances for the communications officers. And we got a 4-year agreement with that. I just thought back, the Teamsters was a 3-year agreement, not a 4-year agreement.
Someone care to move that forward? Moved by Supervisor Mayday, seconded by Supervisor Driscoll. Any discussion or questions about that. There's currently $259,324 in contingent. Okay, hearing no questions or discussion, I'll call the question on 2C. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay, thank you. Sure. Item 2D is weights and measures. Jeff Woodell's truck, the transmission went out in it and we had to repair the transmission. He had some repair. The vehicle is only about 4 years old. And so it was unanticipated that the transmission would go out, but he only has one vehicle and he has to have that vehicle to do his job. He can't do it without. And if the vehicle is fit up with all his equipment that he needs as he goes out to check all the scales and everything else that he does. So it's a repair that needs to be done. He's going to pay a portion of this. We need 6,600 additional from a 1990, the contingent account, to repair the vehicle.
Moved by Supervisor Dracci, seconded by Supervisor Cressida. I talked to Mr. Waddell yesterday. I see him in the parking lot when I got here, and he said that the vehicle works, that it seems to be the fifth gear is hard to shift into, and it was taken up to a dealership in Warrensburg, and they're the ones saying that it needs a new transmission. I don't know. I'm not a mechanic, but seems like to me if the truck moves and works, that except for the fifth gear is shifting hard, that maybe we should get a second opinion before we.
How many miles on the truck?
I think he said 86. He drives a lot. 86,000.
Does the county in general have maintained the same type of list that the sheriff's department does? They list every vehicle that they have, and we sign off on we vote off on an agreement for each of those vehicles. I mean, collectively. I'm just wondering if something similar exists with other departments or the county as a whole, so that we one vendor who might be able to do all of the repairs or recommendations for repairs. Just a
don't
thought,
know I don't know the answer to that. I know Fleet Services manages the fleet in buildings and grounds, and they should see why it didn't go through their repair.
Our building grounds as a mechanic get often program for review, but this may be something that
I think it did.
that often.
It went to the
Okay,
the county's annex and was set up to a Dodge dealership. Talking with Jeff, he just, we both kind of agreed that seemed like a lot of money for a truck that moves, and works, except for the fifth gear. But I know he needs a truck also. So.
I look for a second opinion or,
I guess the second opinion is gonna be probably $200 more or $200 less, and it's gotta be,
County used to use Saunders over wherever, out of Washington County, but I don't know if they're still in business or not, but
They are.
the sheriff's office had good luck with them always.
Yes.
So we're talking about getting a second opinion on it. Where's the truck now in that transmission? Where the truck at the first opinion on the
It's at the
transmission?
Dodge dealership, right?
It's at.
Oh, it's at Crystal up in Warrensburg.
Yeah.
It's a Dodge.
Yeah.
There's a transmission place right in Warrensburg also that's close by on River Street. I've used them before. If you want, Saunders is great.
Yeah.
Take you.
Yeah.
Take you a couple hours. Spirit of saving a few dollars up to the committee.
Okay.
If it's,
Would it be possible for us to tentatively approve the money and then we would go back and try to get a better deal? But if that was the only option we had. I mean, I guess we could say just drive it in 4 gears. But I'm not sure if it's, if you got more damage to the transmission or to the truck, or
right.
is it unsafe? And I think that's the thing I'd be most concerned with.
Yes.
Excellent suggestion, but you know, car places are like trying to get an appointment at the dentist. You may be looking at October, you know, to get into another place. You got an appointment, it's there now. They're gonna get to it in a timely manner.
Mr. Gerard.
Yeah, it's a reputable vendor. Vehicles there, it needs to be repaired.
Yeah,
Let's repair.
Call the question on 2D. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thanks, Chair.
Talk about the plan.
We're on number 3. This is items to be discussed by the county treasurer. And the first item, actually, I think we could probably combine A, B, and C together. And it's a request to appropriate $155,300. 909 general fund unappropriated surplus. One of her budget codes, capital projects to provide funding for the implementation of the 2025 time management system. B establishes that H445 capital project for time management at that amount. And C authorizes a contract with Hayes in the same amount, $155,300 to execute the time management system.
So just a couple of things on this. So, first of all, I wanted to thank everybody that participated in this. This is a countywide solution. The sheriff came to the table, DPW came to the table, HR, the county administrator's team came to the table, and Countryside came to the table. So we took kind of the most difficult, more complex areas, departments, if you will. DSS didn't show up, but they're pretty straightforward. So everybody understood that this needed to be an 80% solution for the entire county. And they all rated the RFP. And Hayes came out with the highest score of 94. And so, I mean, we did it exactly to the RFP specifications. Everybody I sent out last night, we told people along the way what was going on. And then last night I sent out the official. One thing that I want to ask Amanda. So the one thing I didn't like about Hayes, it got the lowest score on cost. It was more expensive than everybody else. And I'm not happy with that. And then I was told that I couldn't do anything about it, but I went back to Hayes. And so the 155, that is the request that came in the RFP. I have gotten them down to 105,380. So can't do it?
I think we just need to double check with Julie since this was part of a bid.
Okay.
So I'm not sure what the process is if they want to change their amount after that, but I can go call Julie. I mean, or.
I called Julie. She told me I could talk to them. I did ask Julie about it. Sorry, I did. Now I want, I just,
You want to amend the amount from the 155,300 to, I'm sorry, what did you say today?
105,380. They also had an annual cost of $82,000 and we got them down to $55,080. So there was a couple of you know, they had 1,000 users when we only needed 900 users, things like that. And then they just sharpened their pencils significantly.
Chairman, if I could just clarify, because it's an RFP, that's different than a bid. So the RFP, the request for proposals, we have some flexibility. So it seems appropriate and wonderful that we were able to negotiate to a lower price.
Thank you. Now, they don't need the 5580 now, do they?
No, that's gonna be every year after implementation.
Someone care to move this forward, or moved by Supervisor Driscoll, seconded by Supervisor Dirachi? Any questions? Yes.
Thanks, Chairman. This, the change in the system was for efficiency purposes, for cost savings purposes.
So there's actually a number of things. Novatime, which we've been using, has been absorbed. So MM Hayes, just so you know, is UKG. UKG is called Kronos. It's the big 800-pound gorilla out there, right? And they're out of the 5 RFP proposals we got, 3 of them are UKG. 1 is actually UKG, the company, and then 2 of them are resellers of UKG. MM Hayes happens to be a reseller of UKG. They're in Albany. They're the only ones that are going to come here and give us live training as opposed to just Zooming where people can, I just think live training with this kind of system is good. But Novatime is going out of existence in several years. Like I think we got 2 more years on it. And we've lost the large majority of our time clocks as of July 1st. We have enough. We bought 3, I think. We bought 3. We gave 2 to the sheriff and we gave 1 to Countrywide. And so we're going along with just the bare minimum. But a lot of people now have the ability to log in from their desk, to clock in and clock out from their desk. We are going to watch it a little closely because there has been a little bit of, you know, abuse historically. But we're also with I talked to you guys about what the external auditor said in their management rep letter about payroll and time management, and that we needed to tighten it and that there was some abuse. With this implementation, we will be closing the majority of those gaps. And if we don't close them all, we'll have mitigating controls in place. Did I answer your question?
It does. My concern is I've spoken to a few individuals, I guess, union people, who have some concerns. I don't know what percentage of the county begin their workday at a site other than their desk, but I think it's a substantial number of individuals. We start their workday outside, whether it's you know, in the field.
They may not even come into the.
Right, yeah.
DPW does come in and they will clock in and clock out at their respective
Okay.
stations. But sometimes the Department of
Oh,
Health
yeah.
Services, thank you. They just go right from their home.
Social
And
services. too.
Social services, yeah, that's what social service and health services. So there will be geofencing, it's called geofencing, and we will be able to design and, you know, a proximity of where they will be able to clock in and clock out of. But people traveling into the county, clocking in from home, that's not gonna, that's what we need to avoid. The drive time, transportation time is not necessarily work time. But again, I think we need to look at it on a department by department basis. And we will work with those department heads.
Okay.
So we will make sure that, you know, it works for everyone. And, you know, again, this needs to work for 80% of the people, and the 20% that maybe need kind of nuances, we'll be able to flex a little.
Thanks.
Any other questions or discussion? Okay, so approval for $105,380 to MM Hayes. I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, D is to appropriate $45,500 from the general fund unappropriated surplus to the treasurer's budget to cover the cost of the contract with Cash Vest by 3+1 Inc. And this is to analyze bank account transactions and better enhance interest income earnings. And I think we can add E to that And that is a request to authorize the contract with Cash Best by 3+1 Inc.
Correct. So if you recall the last, I mean, they're so close together. I think it was the last finance committee. They came in and spoke to us.
Yeah.
And, again, this has been something that's been out there, for a number of years. It's got a great reputation. A lot of other counties use it. I think that, you know, I've been talking to them since I've gotten here. I just wanted to get a lay of the land before I engage with them. And I mean, this $45,000 investment, 45.5, remember, that is an investment that we will not be charged up front. They're gonna give us a proposal, and hopefully, based on their initial analysis, they're telling us that potentially we have another $1 million that we should be able to raise in interest income. And if they give us that analysis and it's not that, we can either walk away or we engage. You know, at this point, I just think any way we can raise revenue is a good thing, as long as I get a good ROI. As long as we get a good ROI, excuse me.
Moved by Supervisor Driscoll, seconded by Supervisor Mayday. Any questions? Yes.
I think that we heard that Washington County has done well by them, last few years too.
Correct.
And a whole list of,
And to give credit,
capital region.
right, and to give credit, I mean, Rob and, you know, the Treasurer's Department historically have worked with Arrow Bank, Glens Falls National. And they've done a good job, but they've done it at a very high level, whereas these guys are coming in and looking at transaction by transaction on a daily basis. So we're gonna just get that much more bang for our buck, so to speak.
Mr. Crusado.
Thanks. So the 45.5, if I remember, is based on the amount that we invest, or estimated what they thought they could increase our interest with. But and either way, that gets paid at the end of 1 year, or does it get paid at the end of a quarter?
It will be paid over time.
Yeah.
They will hopefully start charging us as they start bringing it in. We're not gonna get that $1 million all at once. It's gonna take time. They request at least a year. And so until we start seeing, it'll be quarterly, and hopefully at the quarterly payment, we'll already have seen the increase that'll cover the quarterly payment.
And you talked to Washington County, they were happy with the returns and
Yeah,
the whole
everybody-
process?
Yeah, all the references are,
Okay.
everybody likes, I even talked to Arrow Bank about them. You know, again, and I'm very appreciative of the work that Arrow does with us. And they work with these guys, they like them. But clearly they're going deeper than Arrow Bank goes, and,
Yeah.
you know, they don't really bother Arrow Bank. They don't really even bother us. They simply get access to our literally every single transaction in our general ledger. I've done stuff like this in corporate America. It's just, I think the one page that was the best is that what we're doing is we're on the surface trying to make the best capital investments for our money, trying to make our money make money for us. They are like, they go down deep and they look at everything that's underneath the water. It's kind of like an iceberg. We deal with the top of the iceberg. They're dealing with the bottom of the iceberg.
Good.
And it's not a lifelong commitment.
Right.
Things aren't
We can look at it in a year and
Yep,
easily out.
it is. Larry, did you put into both of these contracts that's the last thing I'm trying to do with MM Hayes is I'm trying to lock in that annual price for 3 to 5 years. They're not happy with me. So I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do that, but I'd like to try to do that. Larry, on these contracts, we'll also have the option to renew for 1 additional year for 3 years out. You know, your standard.
It would
Language.
typically, it could be a 1-year term with the ability to renew for 2 additional 1-year terms.
Yeah.
For a total of 3 years.
Yeah.
Or it could be for a total of 3 years.
I would like Cash Plus to be the 1 year with the option of the 3 years. I think. No, I think MM Hayes is 3 years. There's no way I'm putting that in
Okay,
without.
we're on D and E. Any other discussion about this proposal? If not, I'm going to call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Number 3, F this is a request to authorize Arrow Bank to issue a letter of credit on behalf of Warren County to Highmark Blue Shield of Northeastern New York. as an alternative to pre-funding the health insurance.
This is, you guys have approved this in the past. It has gone up. Forgive me, I don't recall. Maybe it's. I don't know if it's like $100,000 increase, but again, it's just a letter of credit. It's not that we're using it. It's just there should we need it. And to avoid the pre-funding.
Yep, it's for 360,692.
And I think it was 250 in the past. Actually, where is it? Thank you very much.
Moved by Supervisor Mayday, seconded by Supervisor Casito.
Yeah, it didn't have the 250, but thank you so much.
Any questions? We have done this in the past.
Sorry.
But we have done this in the past. No discussion, call the question on 3F, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Okay.
Before we move on, I do have two questions. Just curious, Tammy and John. Mr. Weddle's truck, that not come out of a reserve, or is that just for new equipment, the truck reserve or the equipment reserve? Just a question.
We decided we were not gonna take it out of the reserve.
Okay. It's typically new, thanks. And then lastly, again, there was a slight blunder on my part in the OCTAX committee. But I understand, that folks didn't want to get together. We do have another contract coming out with our occupancy tax end-to-end automation process we're going to go with Deckard. So you will be seeing that unfortunately, I couldn't get it in front of you because we couldn't get it. We couldn't get the OCTAX committee together again before this meeting. But that contract, we've also been able to reduce by 50%, both of the vendors that we're buying for that work because of the excellent process that Warren County has had in place and continues to improve upon. Problem with the process that we have in place is that it's incredibly manual. Again, remember, once we get this thing in place, if it's working as well as we hope, we can maybe do a shared service. That's it.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Christine. Thank you.
Number 4 is referrals from the Criminal Justice, Public Safety and Emergency Services Committee. And the first item is from the assigned council. Request to amend the 2025 county budget in the amount of $18,000. This is to reflect receipt of grant funding from the New York State Office of Indigent Legal Services for the 4th Family Defense, quality improvement and caseload reduction. Moved by Supervisor Dirachi, seconded by Supervisor Driscoll. Any questions? Okay, I'll call the question on 4A. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 4B is the probation department, and this also amends the 2025 Warren County budget in the amount of $431,150. And this is from receipt of grant funding from the New York State Division of Criminal Justice Services for the Brine SCIP Crisis Intervention Program. By Supervisor Mayday, seconded by Supervisor Dirachi. Any discussion? Okay, call the question on 4B. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And lastly, 4C is the Public Defender's Office, and this is also a request to amend the 2025 county budget in the amount of $233,500 for receipt of grant funding from the New York State Office of Indigent Legal Services for the 4th Family Defense, Child Welfare, quality improvement and caseload reduction. Part of the top one. Moved by Supervisor Driscoll, seconded by Supervisor Mayday. Any comments or discussion? I'll call the question on 4C. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. Number 5 is a referral from the Economic Growth and Development Committee, Planning and Community Development, and it's a request to close CD 76 Countryside Renovations and Capital Project 77 Countryside Cares Act and CD 78 Housing Needs and Demand Analysis as the projects are completed and ready to be closed. Moved by Supervisor Driscoll, seconded by Supervisor Cressida. Any questions on 5A? Call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 5B is a request to amend the Warren County budget for 2025 in the amount of $127,626. And this is for receipt of a TANF, Temporary Assistance for Needy Families, grant funding for the Summer Youth Employment Program. Introduced by Supervisor Driscoll, seconded by Supervisor Mayday. Any questions on 5B? Call the question, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? 5C, I believe, is being withdrawn. Yeah, you can explain, boy, because
So after this request came through Economic Growth and Development, I met with the county treasurer, the now retired deputy treasurer, county, to discuss the idea was any funding left over from $100,000 that Warren County traditionally gives to workforce development, that it be carried over year to year. It can't, and then carry over year to year, and if not, then put into the reserve. So this was to create a reserve. That can't be done because we use interfund transfers. It's in a separate set of bank accounts. So we have come up with a plan for that to utilize the Warren County funding, 100% of the funding every year. So in essence, any money that would be left over would go to the Department of Labor account so that they would never lose that money. And I worked with Liza and her fiscal coordinator to work out a plan and all that towards the end of the year.
thank you. Okay, move on to number 6. This is referrals from the Legislative Rules and Government Operations Committee. And it's for the Board of Elections. I think we can combine A and B. They're both grant awards from New York State. One is for $7,617.99. And it's just funding for elections. And B is $18,970.92, also from New York State. And this is for vote by mail grant. So moved by Supervisor Drachi, seconded by Supervisor Mayday. Any questions on those? I'll call the question on 6A and B. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Number 7 is referrals from the Public Works Committee, Parks, Recreation and Railroad. And it's a request to establish capital project H444 up beyond the capital improvements in the amount of $83,161. Introduced by Supervisor Driscoll, seconded by Supervisor Cito. Any questions? I'll call the question on 7A. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. 7B is, this is from the Department of Public Works. And B is a request to increase capital project H411 Corinth Road for Clendon Brook Culvert Project in the town of Queensbury in the amount of $41,109.66. Introduced by Supervisor Mayday, seconded by Supervisor Geraci. Any questions on 7B? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? 7C is a request to establish road projects as outlined in the resolution request form. Someone care to move that? Moved by Supervisor Cressida, seconded by Supervisor Driscoll. Any questions or comments?
Just one comment. I've discussed this with Mr. Hajos in the past, and others I think have asked the same question. being from Glen Falls, I'm not familiar with a lot of the streets and the towns, especially up county. And if we could get a better explanation about where municipalities where some of these projects are proposed for, I mean, it would help me get a better understanding of the work that's being done.
It's in his.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, they are here too.
Oh, okay, I skipped that. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I guess he's listening to us.
Any other discussion on 7C? Call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Oh,
Okay, number 8 is action for the finance committee on the personnel agenda items. And we're gonna act on 3, 4, 5, 6, and 8D. 3 is a request from the clerk of the board. And this is to transfer funds in the amount of $45,000 from the contingent account to budget code 5630-470 mass transit contract to cover the cost of CDTA 18B payments, which were not budgeted for. By Supervisor Driscoll. Seconded by Supervisor Mayday. Any discussion or questions on that? Was it budgeted? We didn't know about.
Technically, we knew about it. We were trying to not pay it. Yeah. Strategically behind it.
All right. Call the question on 8.3. All in favor? Opposed? 8.4 is from the Public Defender's Office. And this is a request to amend the table of organization and salary schedule to increase the annual salary of the third assistant public defender from $84,865 to $117,004 effective January 21st or July 21st. Moved by Supervisor Driscoll, seconded by Supervisor Mayday. Discussion on COLA. Yes.
Just very quickly, I believe that all 6 items were unanimously approved during the personnel meeting.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I should have mentioned, this actually was also a recommendation from Indigent Legal Services. We had a meeting with them about 2 weeks ago. They are providing all the funds and they made the recommendation that we move to this salary.
Good. Ready, call the question on 8.4, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 8.5 is the county clerk's office. And this is a request to amend her table of organization and salary schedule to fund the position of senior legal recording clerk. That's a grade 12, base salary of $51,890. And it will unfund the position of legal recording clerk at a base salary of $47,800. Also effective July 21st. Moved by Supervisor Driscoll or Karachi, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Seconded by Supervisor Driscoll. Any discussion on this item? Okay, call the question on 8.5, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 8.6 is from the Public Works Committee, Solid Waste and Recycling. And this is also amending their table of organization and salary schedule. And they want to create a new position of motor equipment operator medium. That's a grade 12, base annual salary of $51,890. And delete a position of auto mechanic, grade 14. The base salary is $72,740. Introduced by Supervisor Cressito, seconded by Supervisor Mayday. Any questions or discussion on 8.6? If not, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, 8.7. This is from the County Administrator's Office. And let's see, on behalf of the County Treasurer, a request to authorize the Chair of the Personnel Administration and Higher Education Committee and the County Administrator to negotiate and award leave allowances for the incoming Deputy County Treasurer. By Supervisor Mayday, seconded by Supervisor Cressito. Any questions, discussion? Call the question on 8.7. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And 8D. 8D. A request from the county attorney. And this is a request to appropriate 11,734.47 from the general fund unappropriated surplus to budget code 1420-470 county attorney contracts to cover the cost of postage charges incurred by NYSID for the 2025 tax foreclosure mailings. Supervisor Mayday. By Supervisor Cressito. Yes, I'm gonna give Tammy the order.
Okay, so after this was brought up at personnel meeting, I discussed with the county attorney, it looks like there will be revenue in the amount of $10,000 to change. Offset this expense. So my recommendation would be to do a budget amendment to recognize that revenue. And then the difference, which is $1,000 in change, and I didn't have my math in front of me, I provided it to
Yeah, it's 1,489.35.
pass it before it make more sense to bring that, take that out of the contingent account since we have versus the unappropriated. That would be my recommendation. But
Okay.
that's up to certainly.
So we're gonna reduce 11,734.47 to 1,489.35.
Sweet.
Did save some money today.
We spent a lot of the other money.
We didn't save much today.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Privilege of the floor. Yes.
Thank you. So I know you guys have to leave. This is just the one thing. I know that I didn't go through Octax for the Deckard contract. I am talking to them to see what kind of impact that has on our timeline. And I would just like the opportunity to come back to the finance committee and to the Octax committee, because if it really does delay us by a significant amount of time, I'd like the opportunity to maybe get it before the board on the July 18th board meeting
Is this, and Granicus is,
out. This is Deckard. It
no,
was,
Granicus was not funded with Octax, correct?
yes, it was.
Granicus was funded. with-
Granicus, yep, was completely funded with Octax and we have $40,000 in the budget this year. Tourism does for this contract. This contract's 43,750.
That was before I got here then. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
But it's always been Octax. Just wanted to kindly request that.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Motion to adjourn. So moved by Supervisor Mayday, seconded by Supervisor Cressito. Adjourn.
You too. Thanks.